Have yourself a very Merry Christmas. Hello. It looks like two people already here, which is awesome. One of them might be me. So one person here, which is kind of awesome, considering it's Christmas Eve. I hope everyone's got all their shopping done if they give into the commercial aspect of the holiday. And they're looking forward to waking up to wonderful family and friends and all sorts of Christmassy gifts tomorrow morning. I have my own plans, but tonight everything's done. I even cleaned my apartment today. Hey, flip, flip, no. Season blessing the house of pace. Kapla, kapla. We need more Klingon holidays in the world. Yeah, here I am. I decided after I thought about it all week. I was like, what am I going to draw next week? I could easily start another Conan page. That feels a little. I might do that next week. In terms of what I would do, and then I realized, I got to do my seasonal print for my Patreon supporters. And so then I the last couple of days I scattered about for ideas while working on covers and a bunch of other stuff. Scattered about for ideas for what I would do. And one of my favorite pieces from last year was the witch riding the giant black goat. And so I'm still doing all this world building as I gear up towards doing the comic book that will be on Zoop next October and serialized on my Patreon this year. And I realized, well, you know what? There's a Queen of the North. I mean, maybe it's a little too on the nose. I don't know how I'll use her yet. But I decided that since the witches are largely immune to weather in my world, they wear things out of choice more than anything else, that there is a coven of the North, the far North, the Arctic, for reasons I haven't figured out yet. And in the Arctic, they actually, instead of the more kibbutz-like witches living in the coven house that are going to be in the main story, this is a very ancient feudal society of witches. And so her witch hat has a crown with some reindeer antlers in it. And I decided just because, it is snowy, I'm giving her furry tops for her gloves. I'm probably not going to ink the nipples on stream. We'll let that go for tonight. And I'll see how much of this I can do tonight. Hopefully I'll be able to finish it all in an hour or so. Hey, you get to listen to me natter on and doodle away there, Stephen. I almost called you Stephanie. I because of that sign plaque they gave you a while back at your work. That would have been almost too much of an inside joke, I think. Yeah, actually, Stefan, you and we're getting pretty close to having to have that meeting we talked about a few weeks ago. Gotta make a time with Mike and get that sorted so we can actually start planning and doing all sorts of devious stuff for 2024. Well, devious? Does devious apply? It could. But it's me back to drawing witches, which I haven't done for a few weeks, apart from designing pages for the first witch story. I gotta get a hustle on with that. I gotta finish some more Conan stuff. I'm happily busy with the best stuff of my career. Oh, you sent the email? Great. I was polishing off the pencils on this, so I didn't check email. I had a thought of making this an albino giant reindeer. This is way bigger than reindeer. I mean, reindeer can get big. I think this is even bigger than a moose. So this reindeer would mess up a moose pretty effectively, I think. But I thought reindeer with the antlers and everything was just such a nice visual. It matches the horns thing I did with the goat. So just, am I smudging black ink? I think there's like little smudges of black ink there. Must have got some on the heel of my hand. And it comes right off with the kneaded eraser. Did I ever tell you guys about these erasers? They're super soft. Look how soft that is. It's already falling apart just from like flexing it around a bit. The brand's called Moo, M-O-O. I order mine off of Amazon because I can't seem to find them in any art supply stores up here in Canada. And they're super soft, and they never damage the paper. They're softer than the Stadler vinyl erasers that a lot of people use. And I just love them. I kind of stumbled into them. When did I? Either I read something about them online or I just saw an ad for them, and they were talking about how much softer they were than any other eraser on the market. And I had to have it. I had to try it out. I'm like that with art supplies. And so I ordered this Moo eraser, and I've been ordering them. It takes them about maybe 6 months to go through one. They come in packs of 2. So I order it at least. Actually, I order it twice a year, and I give Moo erasers away to people, my artist friends. I go, you gotta try this eraser. I use it with so many of my tools. It's like I fall in love with them, and then I become proselytized for them. So other people should use the materials, or at least experience them and have the option to use them. That's just the way I'm built. Brendan, witches are clearly, for the moment at least, and every time of the year thing for me. It's kind of weird. I remember another artist friend of mine I worked with years ago, and he said, when you find something that actually has an audience that wants more of it, you got to lean into it, as long as you're enjoying it, because those things are few and far between. I was going to make her blonde at one point, and I realized, no, if I make her hair light, it's going to be white because of winter. And I realized, then I have to justify why this one witch has white hair and all the other ones have black hair. And it's because of the mythology world building I did with the hats, and why the hats are black and the hair's black. It doesn't make sense that she would have a white hair without a white hat, which I could do. But as of right now, she's more of a standard witch, but she's got a very specific hat with the antlers. That's her crown, and this buddy she rides around on. Are we going to get an art book day witch? Weirdly enough, I complained about this before. The last message anyone posts, there's a heart that covers off like half a word on the YouTube screen. Are we going to get an Arbor Day Witch? I have to wait till someone else types something and I'll move up and I'll be able to read it. Sorry. I wonder if that's just the dimensions of my laptop I use when I'm streaming. So once you start having ideas about something, ideas tumble onto them. So it's like, I mean, just the idea of drawing a witch on a reindeer with antlers in her hat was kind of like the instigating idea here. But now I go, okay, now she has, as this Queen of the North, she's going to have powers of a sort or responsibilities that other witches don't have. And I like the idea of exploring that. I can probably actually shift over to. I'm using the 005 because I want to get the features right. And despite that, I think one of the nostrils is too big, so I have to paint that back. But the 005 is great for the antlers and the facial details, especially at this small scale. I think it's one of the smallest witches that I've drawn because of the scale of the piece. I think this reindeer is like bigger than the black goat, by the way. Well, it looks like we got 5 people here. Do I have more than the one Conan story? So as it stands, I have illustrations for a Conan novel. And I was doing the layouts last week, and I hit a bit of a stumble because Conan is using as an improvised weapon. He takes a rather large pair of sheaths for lances, which aren't historically accurate as far as I know. They used to cover the tips, but they didn't cover the whole lance, as far as I can my research goes. And he shoves it full of metal filings, turns it into a massive bludgeon. Then he fights this big monster with it. And unfortunately, I can't seem to get around it not looking like a giant dildo. I'm thinking it's like Conan from GTA, that the video game with the big giant purple dildo. I can't get that out of my head, so I'm reading around the book, trying to find an illustration I can just volunteer to the publisher, because I don't want to be the guy who drew Conan swinging around a giant dildo in a fight. I mean, that's perfectly fine for a D&D campaign or a goofier book, but this is a very serious scene in the book, and I don't want to be the guy that has people go, "Hey, it's a giant dildo." That just seems un-Conan to me. She's getting done. I got to be careful because obviously this ink is not drying as fast on this board. This is the Eon board. The surface is a little more sized, I think, or protected than the Strathmore, so the ink sits on the surface a little bit more. And I'm grateful for the quality in general of the board, but I got to be careful. I don't want to be like having little black dots I have to erase, and who knows what happens if they sit there for too long? They might cure. Yeah. So apart from the Savage Sword story, which is, as I'm saying, it's a limited series, and I think it's 6 magazine-sized issues. And issue 2 of that. And I think based on availability, I might get in to do some of the monthly comic book stuff. Maybe a 1 or 2 part stories to fill in for Rob or the other guys they're going to be the main carriers on that. I have to, this year I have to prioritize the Witches and Second Coming, which is starting in January. I got the scripts. I'm waiting for Mark's rewrites because he always does rewrites. And I'm doing the covers and layouts for the 4th arc of Second Coming. 3rd volume is out. Hope you got it for Christmas or just personal enjoyment. And I think that the Witches and there's another thing I don't talk about. I started a while ago. I haven't heard back from the publisher on that for a while, so I got to reach out to them. There's a little, I think it's just like a 5 or 8 page story I drew. I gotta color it still, so I don't think I heard anything back after I inked it, so I got to get back to them and find out what's up with that. If you're into horror, especially Lovecraftian horror, you'll be interested in that. And hopefully I'll be able to do some more Conan in there, but it's going to be a busy year, I think. It's going to be a really stupidly busy year. Between Second Coming, getting the Witch book out, doing the Witch story for next October, Um, yeah, tons of stuff, man. But yeah, I want to do more Conan stuff. Ideally, I'd love to do at least, I don't know, 44 pages, like two issues or like an oversized story per year of Conan, like at least that. And then just keep that going, for as long as I can, as I keep on tooling up to doing work that I write and draw myself and write and draw for other people. I mean, if they offered me, I don't know if I could do a monthly anymore. I know there's artists who just kind of age out of it. I don't think I could maintain any sort of quality for a monthly of like 20 some odd pages. Hopefully it doesn't sound wimpy. I think the quality of my work would suffer. I'd much rather do less but better work, and have people appreciate it and want more, rather than do a ton of work and then realize, yeah, that's not my best Conan work. Just want to do good Conan work, man. It's too much in the vibe of like what I've always done and why I've done comics. It's just gotta keep it good, man. I could have made the leg longer there, but I think this works. I think that's all right. Yeah, so if I don't get that far tonight, I'm only going to go for like another 40 minutes or so. I got to be mindful of everyone else's Christmas as well. Um, get some tassels there. So either next week will be my New Year. I decided to do it. I'm going to do my New Year's live stream from like, I don't know, 7 till midnight. That's a long one. Gives me time to have dinner. I didn't eat dinner today yet. I hung out with my son. And I got back and I did some apartment cleaning and some other stuff and prepped for this. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, time's up. His tassels, reading his tassels. I don't want them to just be like nonsense visual noise, but put tassels and stuff hanging everywhere. Be kind of cool. So, any special plans any of you guys got for this holiday season? Stuff you haven't done before? I've talked to some people who said that they almost feel like it's not Christmas because they're because of COVID. They got so unused to doing like all the what used to be the standard Christmas things that they almost don't know how to holiday anymore, which is kind of sad, I think. But I totally understand that because there's been a massive drop off in like the type of stuff I get to do since COVID. I mean, a lot of my friends, some of my friends moved away, which always sucks. The last 10 years, I've had so many friends move away from the area. And it just doesn't seem like it's safe many times. I mean, I'm hearing about the new variant, California, not to scare anyone, like to throw around some bad news about COVID again, but California is experiencing another massive spike in COVID due to a new strain running around there. And that's That's stupid fucking scary. I mean, it's like it's always been super lethal, especially if you have any sort of like comorbidities. Um, but apparently, this new version is spreading fast again, so it's like big surge in cases in California, which is the most populous state in the U.S. I believe. I think it's bigger than Texas in terms of population. Um, and we're in the holiday season, so everyone's traveling in the holiday season, and a lot of people are driving to California in the holiday season, and they're getting sick. So it almost feels like it's better for people to do less in the holiday season this year. Again, just to keep themselves and their families, all their loved ones safe. But that said, I got to hang out with my son today, which is always the best sort of thing to happen. And all we did was went for a coffee at a Starbucks. And if you follow me on other social media, you know I'm upset with the biggest book chain in Canada, Chapters, because they just my local store went union, and the CEO's a piece of shit, and they're closing the shop and firing all the people because they just don't want a union shop. And because traditionally you close a shop for lack of funds, you relocate the good employees. You keep you keep the best employees you can, because good employees are hard to come by. But nope, because this is a union shop, they're firing all of them, because I think once you're in the union, at least in Canada, I think once you're in a union as an employee, you're always in a union. They can't. The employer can't kill that unless you leave the job and come back and get a job at a non-union shop. And yeah, it's really upsetting. Really upsetting. I'm babbling on about it way too much, but bad moves on Chapters if they don't fix this, which probably too late for them to fix it, because they gave the employees 2 weeks notice already that they're closing. I believe February 11th is the last day, but they're essentially it's with the holidays and everything. They've timed everything so no one in the government can actually really respond quick enough to deal with what they're doing. Because there's a whole bunch of laws they're very likely breaking, but it's also very likely that they will have closed the store and moved on before any lawmakers can take a reaction to it. It's union busting, man. Union busting. So I'm kind of torn. Yeah, Chapters. Yeah, it's I saw it on the CBC yesterday, and so I posted about it yesterday. And my son and I went to the Starbucks at that Chapters, and oh gosh, I forgot I did a TV. The City TV was there, shooting some footage, and the cameraman asked to actually ask me some questions. So I might have been on TV again tonight at 6. So, but I was like busy and lost track of stuff. I've been on TV before. Um, but yeah, I talked to some of the employees, and it just once you get more information from like how badly this has been handled, uh, man, I was really excited. I was hoping that we would actually have a completely union bookshop chain in Scarborough, or at least in Canada, starting with this one, because apparently the other locations are looking to unionize as well. And this is their way of nipping that in the bud. Just basically fire all the union staff, and and tossing the dice in terms of whether or not the government's going to actually do anything to them for union busting. I think it should. Honestly, I would. I'm a long term lefty. If you follow me on social media, I'm a lefty, um, and I believe in a certain amount of I believe in controlled capitalism. I believe that's perfectly fine until we come up with something better. Um, but right now, capitalism is far too unregulated, far too out of control. There's not enough. We have too much greed in our culture and not enough altruism developed amongst the wealthiest of Canadians. They pay too much attention to American media, and now they're all assholes. But what I would like to see is I'd like to see the government say, all right, if you close a business as union, um, what we're going to do is we're going to step in. We're going to take all the assets of the business, because there's always tax rebates and everything that the government always gives these businesses, and they first chance they get, they take the money and run. But what I'd like to see is ideal situation. Federal or provincial government or both would approach the union crew of this store and say, give us a plan for how you'd run this bookstore, and we will give you an adequate loan to open up your own workers' co-op bookstore. And I don't know if it would work on that scale, but knowing that every time a business does this shitty thing to their employees, there immediately be an opportunity for the employees to form a competitive company directly to, even on a smaller scale, but a competitive company to these megacorps who just love screwing the all us littler people over. I think that would be a good political move. Am I working in an area where you guys can't see anything? Yeah, I am. Here, I'll try and keep this up here because I'm working on the legs. Anyway, so yeah, sorry for my seasonal socialism. Yeah. I believe CBC has a story up on it now. Like I said, City TV was actually at the chapters when I was there with my son today, and so there's going to be new stories on that. Apparently, they told the employees just 2 weeks ago, and the employees only announced their opposition to it last week. Like they were gonna essentially protest. They're not stopping people from going into the shop in the store. They want to prove that this store was financially successful. It would actually help chapters management or chapters owners if suddenly the profits went down. But apparently Scarborough chapters is one of the bigger chapters in Canada, and it's super profitable. And they're just purely closing it because union. They don't want a union. So I'm upset. Going to be probably posting about this over the coming weeks as it grinds towards the close. And honestly, when the store closes, I think some of the other chapter stores might still unionize despite what Chapters is doing. And if they do, if I buy it from a large Canadian bookseller, it will only be the union shops, as long as the Chapters allows them to exist. But yeah, that might be if these other shops do not go union. That'll be the last money I'll ever spend in a Chapters. There's too many other options. I mean, it's like part of the reason you would shop at Chapters, because I mean they're roughly the same price, maybe a little bit more expensive than Amazon. Is the convenience, right? They're right there. But if they lose the union and suddenly it's just they treat people badly, therefore that's why they do that. I don't want to reward a company for treating its workers badly. That just seems terribly inhumane. I mean, already we all know our wages are too low for our working class people. they've done such a good job at suppressing wage increases over the last several, 50 years, 60 years, since the 70s at least. That's when a lot of people go back and when they go back and look at what happened in terms of like salaries and everything. It's like it seems like the 70s is when everything really started getting terrible, where the greed just ran away. I blame Nixon, but it's it's I find it highly upsetting. Yeah, I would really like to see um, a real recognition of what workers put into a company. I mean, it's like they're always rewarding investors as if like somehow the investors make the company work. I mean, you can lose all your investors and you still have a company. You lose all your employees, you have nothing. I'll make sure I'm not smudging about any black ink. I really and honestly, it's they talk about, well, your labor has value. Yes, it does, but so does your time. Like if you work at a company for 10 years, you spent 10 years of your life at that company, and for them to just, there's people who've been working at this chapters for over 20, and it's a 25-year-old chapters location. And chapters is apparently figuring out some shitty way to not pay what's due to basically most employees, because it's an hourly wage type business. They're basically saying, "Oh, we don't have to give you full severance," which is apparently another thing the government's going to have to look into. But I don't even think severance is enough. When you work with a company for so long, I think they have to recognize they've eaten up that much of your life too, because they never pay you enough to actually, not need to work. That those days are long gone. The idea that people could retire early unless they were like super executives. How's that looking so far? Basically, yeah. I'm going to do some sort of value and texture. I'm going to make this very dark, and then the background is going to be very light. It's going to be a daylight piece, with all this winter snow everywhere, and then evergreen trees to create some darker lines across here with the mountains in the background. But if I get this all nice and dark and rendered, it'll pop really nice, I think. Using the pen as a dry brush, I'm really putting down these really, really disintegrating lines. Have to be careful that if you use one of these liquid ink ballpoints for a while, and the high-tech shoes do the same thing. Because it's a more of a gel ink than a pure liquid, because otherwise it would just run everywhere. Occasionally it builds up in little blobs here, and you'll turn the pen and you'll get like this big, large black blob where you didn't really want one. The mountains, right now I'm thinking it's either some sort of mountainous region in the former Soviet Union, or maybe I got to do some like I want to find us a localness and everything for this too. I'm thinking, could be Finland, Denmark, someplace where there's mountains and it's mostly cold all the time. Volcanoes are cool, so Iceland would be kind of cool. So these would be witches that relocated to Iceland. Um, that would allow me to do some cultural stuff the way Mignola does. I could pull in some creatures from Icelandic mythology or North Russian mythology. I think that would be super cool. This is a little shaggy looking. I need to do a crosshatch here to kind of level this out. Darken this line up. What we gotta do is gotta protect this leg a bit here. My post-it notes. There we go. That looks more like a blanket. And there's a value, a little bit more shape to it. I can do a different texture here. Excuse me. I don't know if I want to mix the Vikings with the witches. These witches in particular. I realize that anything I create is going to have a certain connective tissue. Even if I say it's like witches live in a different universe or something. I kind of want the witches to be more of a fantasy, pure fantasy thing, and I want the Vikings to be more of a horror thing, which they could coexist. I mean, so many people have done that so well over time, but in my mind, I kind of want to keep them a little separate for a while until I come up with like a really good story reason that the horror stories that the Vikings go through could coexist with these witches and the essentially the somewhat less dark world they live in. Who knows? I could do a Rebel Moon and suddenly just rip off everything. And sorry, I just saw Rebel Moon when it opened. I kind of people are going. You shouldn't hate watching. I didn't turn it on to hate watch it. I really think Snyder can make pretty images on screen, but he has no story sense, no sense of character, no sense of character arcs, no sense of like what makes a good movie. He's almost like what you would get if you fed an AI, and who knows, maybe he used an AI for writing this, but if you use an AI to write a Star Wars knockoff that has lots of like rape aspects to it. Yeah, there's a lot of rape aspects to that book, that film. I like a lot of people, I gave it a shot, and then about 10 minutes in, when he did a slow motion shot of grain being knocked out of a person's hand, that was already I hit the limit. I hit the limit for that. I let it run in my studio because I knew there'd be pretty things to look at, but I was done actually trying to watch it. I would look up when the music or the sounds from the movie were interesting enough. I'd look up and watch, and there's some really cool bits, but there's no connective tissue. and I can say this because even though I didn't really pay that much attention to the movie, there was so much stuff that just did not make sense. There's like just scenes. Yeah, I mean, Ridley Scott knows enough about himself that he likes working with good writers. Problem is, the older he gets, I mean, I don't know if he understands what a good story is anymore, but he leans on his writers very well, very much. And whereas Snyder's writing his own shit and then brings some guy in to make it prettier, and it's not working. It's just not working. I mean, the last time he had a coherent story was Dawn of the Dead, and that was written by James Gunn. And I believe the producer sat on him pretty hard to follow the script. 300 was simple enough to adapt, so he didn't have to do anything there, because it was all just pure, such a pure visual story. It played right into his strengths. Um, Alien. Blade Runner's a mess, but I love that movie way beyond its qualities. I think the performances and the basic narrative holds up well enough to justify that. Um, there are other Ridley Scott movies where I kind of go, yeah, I'll watch that. No, no problem, no problem. Um, in many ways, I think his brother, who's passed, was better with stories than Ridley. At least he had a theme that consistently ran through his work. But yeah, I'll watch Aliens. One of those movies where it's like it comes on, I start watching it. Um, it's like Jaws, where it's like it's just so good, you kind of have to watch it. Yeah, those sequels were like, what the hell, man? It's I think the problem was he was so far away from Alien when he came back to do the sequels. He just wasn't interested in the same things that the Alien movie was about, or even Aliens, the James Cameron sequel. Um, he was clearly more interested in the relationship between artificial humans and creators, that ends up leaning into the idea that that's what's happening with the aliens and the navigator species, that they created the aliens and then so they undid themselves. I don't know, man. That Alien on its own is a horror concept, even when it's a war movie. Every movie that really was a failure since ran far away from the idea that we have this unknown horror. They explain too much. I'm not a big fan of explaining too much in horror. Just enough to keep the reader or viewer to feel engaged with the story and wondering if the stuff's going to be explained, and then you don't explain it. There's a kind of, I mean, in film and TV, if you show it, it's happened, and that grants an almost dangerous narcotic level of control for bad writers like Zack Snyder, um, because they showed you something and then something happened in the following sequence. Um, you believe it; it's happened. It doesn't. A lot of people will take a long time to figure out. Oh God, that doesn't make sense. And it's usually when they're talking about the movie after it happened. And yeah, Ridley Scott was a little bit better about that stuff when he was young. James Cameron's really strong in that. He's very meat and bones in the storytelling. He's really good at getting all that down. I have a piece of blank paper I can use as a hand shield here. I do. Hang on. It's one of my layout pages. I'm gonna use it for layout later. I just don't want to be smudging it because as I get into like all my stupid heavy rendering. All right, so 15 minutes left or so. So I might work on this next week. It's going to be like a 5-hour session. So I might pick it away at this a bit over the week, and then work on it. Maybe even finish it next week during the stream, and then do some Conan and some other stuff. Basically, make it like a nice, 7 to midnight is 5 hours. So a nice 5-hour session, which I haven't done a session that long since C2E2 at home. It might be fun just to watch me get increasingly intoxicated as the evening goes by. I will be drinking and drawing. There will be alcohol imbibed. I appreciate that. It's basically I just after talking about it on stream last week and realizing it'd be really really cool. I might even pick up like a bottle of pop. Hopefully, it won't spray all over the artwork. It'd be really cool to actually do something like that. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily expect people hang around all night. That just seems too much. But I don't know. It'd be nice to have like a nice long session again. I wanted to do more of those C2E2 at home things this year, but it just didn't work out. I was waiting for my art. My art rep was really excited about the idea, and he said, "Okay, we'll plan this," and then nothing happened, which is sadly typical of most people's projects. So I'm going to take more control over that, get some friends involved. I hit the lock button. This is a Brio 4K. I hit the lock button on it, and it still does this kind of like, and it seems to do it after every time I move my hand. It seems to focus unfocus, which it doesn't seem to be doing right now. Yeah, it's or maybe there's a different setting somewhere else where I can play with it. But yeah, it does this kind of like if my hand moves away from a detail area, it does this pop, pop, pop thing for a bit, and that realizes that it's still doing it. Put my hand back in. Usually, yeah. Now it's completely out of focus. Will it come back? Yeah, I noticed this the first time I got this camera. Why is it not refocusing? Again, that's probably because it's locked. Super blurry, isn't it? Is it hot? No, camera's only a little warm. Oh, there we go. It's back in focus again. There we go. And it's doing the pulse thing again. Yeah, it's really annoying. I'm tempted to write Logitech and like see if they have a solution for this problem, but as I understand, Logitech's not great for getting back for issues like this. They expect you to figure it out with their network of users. Hey, no, you know what? Any help to make a better stream is Always welcome. Stefan, who's I believe might still be here. He's wrapping gifts. He's my guru for all this online stuff. But I try not to pester him too much because there'd be no end of it. I'd be, oh, Stefan, this isn't working. What do I do? Okay, now it's not working again. What do I do? It'd be like his parents asking him to fix the TV all the time. The TV doesn't work. Ah. Oh, still in focus. All right. Yeah, it does this weird thing. I call them pulses, where it's like it'll be in focus. Then I'll move my hand or I'll move the page or something will happen, and suddenly it'll just like focus out of focus, focus out of focus, focus out of focus. No idea why it's doing that. Yeah, it's doing it again. I'm not sure. Is it because I'm working in art that it's like trying to decide like what lines are where it's supposed to focus? But it always settles down, and it's like it's just such a weird thing. Yeah, I really want. I think I'm pretty sure the black goat sold, so I don't have it around anymore. But if it should be up on Instagram or something, the black goat's huge too. I just want like these big, almost like dire monster creations to still be in the world with the witches. Like they're protecting these ancient creatures of ginormous size. I just think that's kind of cool. You got to lead into the stuff that you think is going to be cool in the story. So I think giant goats, deer. Um, Contemplating doing like a polar bear. I drew a Dreadstar piece, a tribute piece, and it being used as a cover for the Dreadstar Kickstarter years ago. And I just drawing a polar bear is so much fun. So there's part of me that kind of like, yeah, I want like a real giant polar bear, and I imagine there's still going to be some giants in the world, even though I think I told you guys that there was a war between the giants and the witches, and the witches won. Um, but I definitely want armored frost giants riding polar bears. Just a sequence of them. I don't know. Might be a flashback to the witch war, which I think would be cool if I can find a place for it, or it just might be something that's happening in current continuity with the stories as they go forward. Just like polar bears are fun to draw, man. Ever since, in fact, you know what? I'm on the December of my Frazetta calendar, and it's got the Silver Warrior, where he's on that chariot sled being pulled by 4 polar bears. And considering how big polar bears are, this guy's got to be about 15 feet tall. So at least. So I love that piece. Kind of disappointed. It's like there's a Frazetta Girls calendar, but they're like stupidly expensive to get in Canada. But there's also like one of the competing family members also puts out like a more standard Frazetta calendar. So that's the one I usually get. But I went and checked because, end of the year, time to get a new calendar. Sold out, man. I am disappointed. So much of my retail therapy this last month or so has been stymied. Yeah, I want the antlers go all the way up here. And they're going to be like really dark antlers too. I want them to really pop against the background. So there's going to be a lot of shadow. There's also, I decided I'm going to break one of the antler bits. I think it's been in a fight or something. That just seems, just one. Just establish that there's like some stuff that's happened. Yeah, so that's where that one's going. That's where that one's going. My God, my stomach is rumbling. Yeah, I was thinking I was going to go a little past 8, but I think I'm going to wrap up in 5 minutes and get some dinner because I put off getting dinner, and now it's like it's rumbled like 3 times, and I'm worried that you guys are hearing it. It just seems rude to me. So let me just get a little bit of those antlers in. 5. What can I do in 5 minutes? Oh, I'm very happy. I'm very happy you're happy with the Elric. It's always the case where it's like after I finished it, I went, you know what? I'd like to do an Elric doing this. I'd like to do an Elric doing that. It almost feels like whenever I get to do a commission of a character like that I love, but don't get to draw very often, I really now have it in my hands where it'd be like, yeah, I should. If someone was doing an Elric comic adaptation, one that wasn't canceled like the European edition, which I really like, I would like to do a couple of Elric covers or a short adaptation that hasn't been done yet. I do love me some Elric. Thank you so much. I was worried about the red wrecking the light effect, but I think I managed to pull it off. I think I did. I'm kind of don't want to sound arrogant, but I'm happy with that piece. I think it turned out well. I don't want to start any other part and then go longer and just make myself stupidly hungrier. So I think, well, if you commission another one, maybe you got to get Moonbloom involved or Cimarol. All right, guys. So I'm gonna call the stream now. So there's so much of it. I'm gonna save it for next week. Work on it, maybe finish it. I will do some work on it in the interim, but I want to put an hour at least in work left into this. So then there's a nice chunk of this. I'll do another Conan page. Maybe I'll work on one of the illustrations if I get those approved. I might work on one of the Witch pages. I'll have 5 hours to work on a whole variety of things. So I'd want you guys to be entertained if you whenever you watch or if you watch it on replay. So I want to fill up them 5 hours with cool shit. All right, guys. You guys have a great night. Have a great week. Merry Christmas. And I will see you next Sunday for New Year's Eve if you're able to make it. Good night, people.